have the pleasure of announcing our next poet, Mr. Paul Juyzck, co-founder of the Saturday Afternoon Poets. He's many things, but he's poetic in all of the things he does. Two of the books that he has written will tell you a little bit about him. He has a book entitled A View from the Porch. I call him a viewist because of that book. He has another called For All Intents and Purposes, but more than that, in every breath he takes, in every sharing of the air around him, he is a poet's poet, a poetic soul, a kind, caring, sharing person that I've come to know. Mr. Paul Juyzck.
With some more recent poems and then read some from days gone by. This first one is something that I wrote fairly recently, and it's a comment on the millennium that just passed, and it's a snapshot of something that happened a number of years ago, and it's called Sands of the Century. The sands of the century are running out, each grain an indelible snapshot, like this one of Pope Pius XII, shaking hands with Il Duce before the cheering crowd. 100,000 St. Pauls suddenly struck blind and deaf to the cries of the children of David being carted away in cramped cattle cars. The smoke from the camps fills the air as Europe sleeps, a solemn eulogy to the sands of the hourglass, now slipping away in the secret, hushed corridors of history. Thank you. I always fancied myself as being a rock and roller at heart, but I do like other types of music, and I always liked the music of Frank Sinatra, although my late mother did not like the music of Frank Sinatra, and my Aunt Regina wanted to marry Frank Sinatra. And that did not happen, because if it did happen, I would not be here today. I'd be kicking back in Beverly Hills or Malibu somewhere collecting my inheritance. Okay. I wrote this upon the passing of the chairman of the board, and it's called As I Sit in Darkness. As I sit in darkness, drowning in whiskey and self-pity, the skinny saloon singer captures the mood in the wee small hours of sadness. He whispers to the piano player, takes a sip of his scotch and sorrow, and, in a cigarette voice, bathed in perfect phrasing, croons his tales of booze on the rocks, love on the rocks, and then passes his torch songs to a lost generation who can't appreciate his final farewell as his spotlight dies and the house lights cry on an empty stage. Thank you. And this poem is based on something that my wife Suzanne and I witnessed this past fall while on vacation in Long Beach Island, and it's called Bookends by the Bay. There they sit, bookends by the bay, seagull sentinels guarding their turf, turquoise waters, holy waters. Landlubbers, keep your distance, they say, cawing curses at the old ladies who feed them crumbs, crumbs of bread, crumbs of information about the good old days, when Barnegat's beacon lit velvet nights, slices of heaven across Jersey skies. These bookends by the bay choose to live in the present, have no use for mocking mimics they leave in their wake, as they sail away, free again, into the mute mouth of the world. Thank you. This is another new poem about something that is taken from a page of American history. It's called All Hail the Conquering Hero. My long locks have been sheared. They lie upon the floor, along with the newspaper clippings that call me a hero. My face is clean shaven, like the years you shaved off my life. You could have sent me to Germany or Italy, but instead you shipped me to Asia, to the land of endless night and the nightmares that plague me to this day. But I won't cry this morning, won't stain the formal uniform you dress me in. I'll play the proud Marine for you again. But forgive me if I don't salute, if I don't stand up. Just place my Purple Heart upon my lap as I silently stare from this wheelchair you gave me. Thank you. I had the good fortune of having this next poem published by Thomas Jones, and I thank him for that. It's about my favorite poet, and it's called The Old Man in the Hat. Today he's not Lawrence Ferlinghetti, not the latest laureate in San Francisco. Today he's not marching to a different beat, not traveling back roads to gone places. Today he's not on a mission, Dolores. That's just a rumor you heard. Today he's just the old man in the hat, with elfin eyes and a Santa smile. Today he's leaving the city lights behind. Today he's following those bright blue balloons from the Church of St. Francis to Golden Gate Park. Today he's got his canvas and his colors, ready to capture the good life and the still life. But when he sees two brazen beauties making love in the Japanese tea garden, in the shadow of the blind Buddha, he puts aside his brushes and takes out his pen and paints us a poem instead. Thank you. A few months ago, on my way to work, I noticed in front of a church in Wallington an elderly man standing in front of the statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and he seemed very, very despondent, and he was gently touching the statue, and I was inspired to write this poem based on what I observed that morning, and it's called Praying to Icons. He spends his morning praying to the icon, to the Sacred Heart, to the broken heart, to the bleeding heart of Jesus. He looks up into those stone-cold eyes, to those outstretched hands that seem to ask, why me? He clasps his rosary beads. They break off in his hands, scattered among the pew like some lost original sins. The beads of sweat line his forehead in a circle, like his own crown of thorns. He makes the stations of the cross, wishes he could jump off at this station, heads back to the street, still not feeling all that great about the fate of mankind, while the Church of the Sacred Heart prepares itself for Mass, before the mass of humanity, who carry a common cross called misery. Thank you. It's a short poem called In the Pancake House. In the pancake house on the Jersey shore, I thought about the low and high tides of life. And then I saw the ocean there in your eyes, and the storm clouds covering them. Thank you. As some of you know, I like to sometimes play around with words, and I did so in this poem. It's called Reflections. In the window of the closed shop on Saturday, I saw nothing but my reflection and the line of tackle boxes on dormant display. And then I saw your smiling face in the pane next to mine, and happily I took the bait. Thank you. It's nice to see Joey Giacovino here, and I hope you're going to entertain us in a little while. Okay. All right. This is one of Joey Giacovino's favorite poems of mine, and it's about one of my favorite singer-songwriters and his wife, Neil Young and his wife Peggy. And it's called Neil and Peggy, Young at Heart. Pretty Peggy, you can dance down by the river tonight. Neil's on his way home again, back from the road, back from his Homeric, heroic odyssey. He's made his way through Buffalo and Springfield, through Ohio and Hollywood, past the whiskey stills and the old Nash ramblers, rusting along the highways and byways of America. Neil, your country girl is waiting. She's cooking your favorite meal. You can already taste the saffron and cinnamon. Tonight's the night she'll be in your arms again. Tonight's the night two golden hearts beat as one underneath a harvest moon. Thank you. This one is called Deja Vu on Streets of LA. Sometimes I think the rumors are true, that we lived once before in the days of Merlin's magic, when I was the troubled troubadour in search of a dream, and you, the Welsh witch, in search of a spell. And my hollow words filled the morn, and your charm clothed the night, and together we were two spirits in flight. And now, Deja Vu has written this play. I'm the poor poet in search of a rhyme, you, the enchantress, in search of your soul. And it's so hard to tell the dark from the light, and together we sigh, white doves in the night. And I wish for once you'd show me a smile, but the thunder of love lasts just for a while. And even though we've taken a chance, songbirds never sing for gypsies locked in a dance in the chorus line of life. Thanks. Among numerous things that were taught to me by my brother was a respect and an appreciation for rock and roll music and for the most popular disc jockeys of the 1960s. And this is an old poem. This is about one of those disc jockeys, Murray the K. Kaufman, who passed away in 1981. And I wrote this when he was slowly dying of cancer. And it's called In Spite of Moses. In spite of Moses, we all have our idols, like Murray the K, who spun some discs once upon a time, bringing the music world out of the Stone Age into the Rock Age. Murray, I saw you last night on TV, and I was saddened at how life took its toll. Bits and pieces of our idol chipped away like paint from the walls of the concert halls, now empty, the music just an echo of the past. Thank you. This is a short poem about love's illusions, and it's called Little or No Accumulation. She comes into your life like a Scirocco surprise, stirring up the sands of your desert passion. But instead of an oasis, she's just a mirage. And suddenly summer gives way to the fall, as an Arctic blast blows in from the north, an Alberta clipper that chills to the bone, and soon you're alone as the snow flies away, with little or no accumulation. This being the eve of Valentine's Day, I thought it was appropriate that I read this. It's called Memories of a Man, 1923-1993. Today my father wears his factory face, too many frowns for a man of 40. We walk to the park, his calloused hands relax their grip, and he holds my tiny fingers with something akin to reverence. He teaches me baseball, my first game of catch. 2 hands, Paul, he says. The weight of the world is lifted from his shoulders. He smiles again. He's living a childhood that he somehow missed. Down through the years, he's always there, shy, silent figure. The times he yelled at me fading away like passing decades. My mother passes away. Depression is his companion now. There are days when we walk to the park, and he tells me how much he misses her and longs to join her. I walk those streets by myself now, and I think of my father while others play catch. A wayward ball rolls to me. "Throw it here, mister," the little boy says, but I heave it skyward with all my might. "Two hands, Daddy." Thank you. This next poem I wrote a few years ago when Fidel Castro turned 70 years of age. And it was also inspired by something that I saw on public television. So there's quite a bit of elements of truth in this poem, and it's called 70. Castro turns 70, smiles at the cake in the shape of Cuba. He blows out all the candles, each one extinguished like 1,000 hopes and dreams. His once black beard is now a scraggly gray, like the storm clouds over Havana. Maria writes her poems of freedom by candlelight each night, and fears the dawn when Castro's agents rush in, tearing her words and her spirit to shreds, jamming the pages into her mouth, her torn lips dripping blood like all too many sacrificial lambs. Thank you. This is a poem about someone who was taken away from us way too soon, and it's called Diamonds and Tears. When Diana becomes the hunted, the boundaries between reality and myth become blurred like the eyes of children. The tears glisten on their cheeks like the diamonds now growing dusty on palace shelves. There's no storybook ending here, no happily ever after. Diana, what did you think as you approached this tunnel, so very different than the others? I hope you knew that no one would hound you now. That's not the intrusive flash of the cameras you see, but rather the loving, brilliant light of heaven. Thank you. This is for my wife, Suzanne. It's called Constellations. The full moon rises and kisses the horizon, bidding adieu to this most perfect day. The crashing of the waves inspire thoughts of God, no beginning, no end. And you and I on the balcony embrace the night and each other. As we gaze upon the ocean and wish upon the stars, we count the flickers of distant lightning, each one for a split second shining like spotlights upon summer's curtain calls. And then, across the heavens like an angel, a comet streaks by, your name in its wake. There's a poet in Rutherford named Bob Quattrone, and Sal and I have read with him a few times over the years. And Bob Quattrone has a brother named Richard, and many years ago, Sal and I were involved in reading poetry to Richard Quattrone's poetry class at Passaic High. And unfortunately, over the years, we've lost track of Richard, and a number of years ago, he went through some personal problems, and that kind of left him embittered, to say the least. And this poem is about him, and it's called Bastille Day. The angry old man sits in the cafe in this New Jersey resort like he's on the Champs-Élysées, and plots his revenge like he's a sans-culotte, a 20th century Jacobin, like it's 1789 all over again. He suffers from déjà vu, or is it paranoia? He hates the ancien regime, their noble causes and clerical errors, their keystone cops and kangaroo courts. He scribbles in his poetic journal words of liberty and revolution, like he's ready to storm the Bastille, like he's the second coming of Baraka or Ginsburg. He just doesn't see that sometimes the world would rather hear about love or family or Jesus Christ. Instead, he sits alone sharpening the cutting edge of his guillotine, like he's the savior, like he's a martyr, while the long rainy night pours on, while life passes him by, right on through to the next millennium. Thank you. I'm just going to read a few more because our next featured poet is here, Sal Bertocci, and I certainly don't want to take anything away from his feature. They announced the Academy Award nominations today, and the Super Bowl and the Academy Awards are two events during which I am not to be disturbed at all. If Jesus comes down, he's going to have to wait till those programs are over before he takes me, okay? So I don't have a poem about football, so this is called Celluloid Dreams. With a willing suspension of disbelief, I walked along Hollywood and Vine at 2 a.m., just minding my business, singing in the rain, until someone hit me over the head with a Citizen Kane. I sunk like a Sharon stone, fell to the ground, passed out, and no one gave a Van Dam. But I recovered. Heaven can wait, I said, then noticed what 12 angry men had done. I had George Burns on my shirt, my money gone with the wind. And then I awoke to the sound of music on my clock radio. It was just a celluloid dream. None of it really happened, but I had you going for a while. I guess I'm just a real Margot Kidder. Thanks. I'm going to read two more poems. 20 years ago, I self-published this ridiculous little book called Not the Point Exactly. Okay? And a lot of it's not very good, but this particular poem I kind of liked. And sometimes it's hard to tell whether a poet is being autobiographical or being fictional. This poem is based on events that really, really happened, okay? And a good friend of Sal's and mine is Frank Britton, who's a talented poet out of North Arlington. And Frank has a poem that he basically introduces each time he reads it with saying that it was based on an evening of too little sense and too much liquor. And that's pretty much the case with this particular one. And it's called Maybe Nancy. Nancy doesn't ask for much, just a quick I love you, or a smile, or a nod of appreciation. She's a bewitching enchantress in these Tupperware times, with falsehoods and Ukrainian Easter eggs. She's spacey, maybe crazy, or maybe saner than anyone else on this God-forsaken planet. She's hard to figure out, but easy to understand, and I'll probably never see her again, and probably won't care. But she's left her mark on the world and me tonight. There are so many possibilities. Maybe she'll crack up her mother's new Buick, or end it all when her lover leaves her. Or maybe she'll come out of the night into this bar again. Hey, maybe we'll rap and kiss once more as time moves on. And maybe she'll guess my name. Or maybe I'm kidding myself. Because she might find another to talk to about sculptures and suicide and stepfathers and light bulb breasts. But hopefully we'll go on forever, chasing dreams with still life smiles and made up values. And if I'm lucky in the final scene, maybe I'll just fade out of sight with Nancy, the artist in a paint-by-number world. And I never did see her again. So, who knows? And my last poem is one of Jack's favorites, so I'd be remiss if I didn't read it. It's about Allen Ginsberg. It's called Remembering Allen. I see you standing alone in the night, a tear in your eye, a smile on your face, the ultimate paradox. Please allow me a moment of your time, one of your last remaining seconds. Thank you for your thoughts, your beliefs, your poetry, your verse flowing free like the Ganges. You turn and walk away to fade into black, but before you do, you howl at the moon, howl at comic God, howl with rage at the cancer raping your liver. Howl for Carl Solomon, howl for Jack Kerouac, howl for Neil Cassidy, howl for William Carlos Williams, an eternal escort to batter down the gates of paradise where you can see with the eyes of the angels. You howl with anger at rhyming scholars who belittle you, howl at the soldiers and politicians who scorned you. You howl at Mayor Daley and his Gestapo goons. You howl at every thug who beat your queer shoulder into the ground only to see you rise like a phantom phoenix. Howl for Timothy Leary to fuel you through the acid afterlife. You howl at the beats in Berkeley, howl at your brothers in Boulder, howl at your many imitators unfit to kiss your holy ass. You howl in the cornfields of Kansas, howl at the prophets in Greenwich Village, howl at the hippies in hate, howl from the podium at the Great Falls, howl in the crack houses of Patterson, howl at the whores of Passaic, howl so those who have come before will remember, howl so those who come after will never forget. Howl, howl, howl across the landscape of America. Thanks a lot.